regular, my thyroid medication, right? Things that you just take as a pill and I swallow. Do I have to go ahead and start doing research if they use as a binder any grain derivative? So everyone's giving me these nods, but believe it or not, someone in Los Angeles was a rabbi, put out a booklet, and people would call him and ask him, is this specific medication fine or not? Why were they concerned? They were concerned that since I swallow a pill is not edible, and a pill is like a chair made out of the mixture of flour and water, but by swallowing it, perhaps there is achshave. Says the great Chazon Ish, achshave only applies when you eat something. Swallowing is not eating, and therefore, halachically, any medication, is printed in our bulletin even, that any pill that is not flavored, that is not chewable, something you just swallow, there is absolutely no Pesach issue. And even if you would know without a doubt that they use actual chametz in it, it's not food and there's no intention of eating it, and it is 100% fine. That's a piece of information that I think is important to know. Another piece of information I'd like to mention before we will take questions. One day a year that I remember being starving as a child was not Yom Kippur, not Tisha B'Av, but Erev Pesach. For some odd reason, I'm still trying to assess it. I have to call my brother, the psychologist. Maybe he will give me some clarity. But Erev Pesach, there was this feeling of starvation. What is there to eat? And we would always hear the awful same answer from my mother: eggs and potatoes. And there was something like terrifying about it. I don't know why, right? But I have a feeling I'm not the only one. So now, the real reason for its concern is because we can't eat chametz, but you don't eat matzah. We know that on Erev Pesach, halachically speaking, from dawn, some already from the night before. Some people start already from Purim and Rosh Chodesh. Those are minhagim, very nice. But halachically speaking, Erev Pesach, you don't eat matzah. So if you can't eat chametz and you can't eat matzah, what do you eat? So an option, which when I mention, some people are surprised, but nevertheless it's true. One option would be kneidlach. And you're going to say to me, kneidlach, but kneidlach are made with matzah meal. The answer is that you are not supposed to eat Erev Pesach matzah that can be used to fulfill the mitzvah at night. You hear? You cannot eat on Erev Pesach, Le'iva Pesach, matzah that at night you could use for the mitzvah. The rule is that if you cook matzah, it is no longer usable for the Seder night. So since, is it okay? So since for the Seder night, if you take knedels and believe you can fulfill your obligation of eating matzah with the knedel, it just won't work. So therefore, Erev Pesach, it is okay, it is permissible to eat knedlach. I hope people are not going to be upset at me that now I put some people to work that they're going to be asked to be made knedlach for Erev Pesach. I'm just giving you a fact. Knedlach are fine. Erev Pesach. Okay, Now, it has to be that it is cooked. That's the key. Cookies that are baked, meaning if you take matzah meal and you add oil, eggs, sugar, and bake them, that remains prohibited. It has to be cooked. Okay, so keep that in mind. You have to cook your matzah. What was that? Okay, fried would have to have oil that covers it. It would have to be significant. Covers it? The holiday of cholesterol. Okay. Next, I'll mention a few other things that I think are important. When it comes to the Seder night, the measurements, well, as we get closer, we'll discuss it in detail. Remember, you're supposed to eat the volume of an olive. And if you want to know the size of an olive, you could go to Sobeys. And they have, not far from the cheeses, they have those. So you could look at an olive and eye it. And that's the volume, not weight, that you eat. So if you take like a quarter of a machine matzah, right, you have there the volume of an olive. In other words, you don't have to be concerned for more than that. It's the volume of an olive. How much do you have to drink? Now first, 3 ounces. We mention this every single year, that you drink 3 ounces. Ideally, wine. If you can't drink wine, grape juice. If you can't drink grape juice, apple cider, right? In other words, there are people that really, for health reasons, can. So apple cider. If apple cider doesn't work for you, you get some kind of enjoyable tea. Okay, you could go ahead and do that. Do your research. But
do you have to drink? Oh.
If you can, someone who can't. There are people that, for medical reasons, cannot drink wine and grape juice. You try wine, you can't grape, you can't. You downgrade based on needs. Yes?
Do you have to drink the 3 ounces, or do you have to drink the majority of 3
You have to drink the majority of 3 ounces, correct. So you have a 3-ounce shot glass, and you drink 2 of it, that you fulfill your obligation with that. Yes?
We asked someone couldn't have last year wine.
Right.
Or grape juice. Anything from grapes.
Good.
So they were told a pure juice.
A pure juice.
Anything.
Okay, good.
Pure juice.
I think anything, it should be the best of the pure juices. In other words, something that's like enjoyable. I don't know, pomegranate juice, whatever, something that cherry juice, something that is enjoyable. It has to be like a chosheva. What was it? You said prune juice? What?
Barley.
Barley juice. Okay. Barley juice and prune juice. Okay. Yes. Rove Kos you have to drink. A majority of 3 ounces. That's how much you have to drink. Yes?
If you can drink grape juice but not full strength, can you water it down?
Okay, so with what you could do is you could do the following: 1 ounce wine, 1 ounce grape juice, 1 ounce water. That could be done. That's option number 1. For someone that cannot drink full-strength grape juice, you could water it down if 51% of it is grape juice. It's a dispute among authorities, so in case of need, you could rely on the lenient school. In case of need, you could rely on the lenient one if 51% of it is grape juice. I'll share with you a brief story before we go on to the following questions. There was a great rabbi in the city of Erloy in Hungary. His name was Rabbi Shimon Sofer. And during World War I, there was a shortage of food throughout the world. Everyone has stories. My grandfather supposedly was really starving during that period of time. In Israel, there are stories. So Rabbi Sofer, the Rabbi Shimon Sofer, who was a grandson of the Chatam Sofer, he's a grandfather of an uncle of mine, so they share the following story, that he was extremely disturbed that Pesach is coming and there's a limit, the food is limited. So he went to the main committee, like the local vad of the rabbis of Hungary, and he asked them that it's time that we get together, sheyatiru achilat kitniot b'yemei Chag HaPesach, that due to the shortage of food, we have the obligation, the right thing to do is for us rabbis to get together and to declare that this year kitnios are fine. Okay, now let's assess the reality. They didn't have a sobis with. There were shortages. Real Jews were starving. How did the rabbis react? Want to guess? Hungarian rabbis. It's an opportunity for some of you to.
No way.
No way. No way. V'lo hiskimulo. So what did he do? So he himself went ahead and he published thousands of flyers. And he didn't have a high-speed printer. He had to pay for it. And he spread them throughout Hungary, and he sent them to, there were many Jews in the army at the time, and he taught everyone, sheyochlu v'yizbimu b'yemei Pesach memine kitnios. And, in other words, he declared that this year, eat kitnios, v'hu mekabel al atzmo, and he is accepting upon himself the responsibility on the issue. Meaning, okay, other rabbis don't agree with me, you know what, I'll do it myself. And that defines greatness. In other words, someone that assesses a reality. Now, Baruch Hashem, we're 100 years later. Right? We're exactly 100 years later. And we have merited to live in a world to see miracles and to have an abundance. No one, I think the challenge of Pesach is not eating too little, right? There's another challenge on Pesach. But the reality is that which teaches us that these are minhagim that we value, but we have to place them where they belong. And returning to the problem of our generation, a negative approach to Pesach is what we have to purge more than anything else. It has to be something that's enjoyable. It has to be something that we look forward to. And it has to begin, we have to develop within ourselves a way of making that a priority. And if there are leniencies that must come into the picture to make this a wonderful holiday, we have to go ahead and do it. You know, someone asked the question about people who have nice silver vessels that are chametzik, but they want to display them on Pesach. They want to have them in the china cabinet. Do they have to cover it? So the poskim say that it's not just okay to keep them uncovered. It is ideal to enhance Pesach. Now you should have something around the knob as a reminder not to pull it out of the china cabinet. But Pesach is a time that you're supposed to use your most expensive dishes. Right? We don't have at home, we have at home china. We have, I don't know if it's china, whatever it is, some expensive dishes that we do have. They are not used the whole year. When do we use them? We use them for Pesach. Why? This is a time of excitement, of freedom, Jewish identity, and therefore that's the attitude that we must develop, and that is a priority. And I'm telling this generation, because you have to teach it to the next generation, the generation after it, that the Oy, Erev Pesach, which with all due respect to wonderful people and a wonderful generation, is not what we should be practicing today. Thank you for sponsoring. Thank you for listening. I'll take some more questions. Is that okay?
Yeah, I was going to say, are there questions?
Yeah, one quick question.
Okay, we'll go that way. Yes?
Can you go into a china cabinet and take things out when you've got your hummus stick things there, china, you know?
The ideal is that during Pesach, those items that are chametz should be closed. In other words, there should be that reminder not to go for it. Separated. That's the ideal, that you should not have easy access to them. Jerry.
So
then I'll get back to you.
earlier on in your presentation, you said something about know what level you're on and live by it. So how do you reconcile that or clarify that with the idea of raising the bar in terms of your own observance or whatever?
Okay, excellent question. And probably the most complex question of all human existence is to figure out where I'm holding. And, you know, there has to be a touch of discomfort to be able to grow, but if you put the bar too high, you quit the game. Not easy to assess, and it's something that we work on ourselves, we work on our children, but you have to, you know, a person has to be in tune with themselves that when I feel agitation and I feel upset, I realize that I must go ahead and make an adjustment. That's the idea. You have to assess yourself. The question is a very strong one, and we all struggle with it, right? We want to go ahead and have standards, but if we go through a system that believes that you're only a good Jew if you're perfect, that's a very destructive way of educating the next generation. If we make a religion where the bar is here, we don't achieve anything. You know, where to place it, we need a lot of wisdom. Yes?
Water that is OU but doesn't have a P, can you use the rule of 160 as for Pesach?
If it's water, 100% water, it's 100% fine. In other words, if it's just plain
Olive
spring
oil,
water...
the same thing.
Okay, olive oil, you have to remember that there are two types of olive oil. There is cold press, which means that it was not heated, and then there's regular olive oil. Cold press olive oil that has an OU is kosher LaPesach. Reason being, it is only olives, and it was not running on equipment that was heated, so therefore it is fine. Cold press is fine. Okay? We thank you.
Two more questions?
There's one. Not bad, thank you. Yes?
Okay, on a practical level, going back to covering and not covering, when it comes to counters, I don't eat off of my counter. I don't put food directly on my counter, but maybe food may spill on the counter. I always cover my counters. Do I have to continue covering them, or based on what you were saying, is it good enough just to clean it or pour hot boiling water over it?
Okay. You have two options basically to do it in the ideal way. To either pour boiling water or cover. No need at all to do both. No question about that. And if you know that you're not going to be placing any food on the counter and no one in your household will be putting actual food, so then it is not necessary. I think that in many, in the normal, and especially by us, Kenai with the kids, I know that they will be putting food on it, right? Hopefully only food and not their shoes. So therefore, we do cover it. That is what, so therefore either or. That's what is, I believe, is practical. Yes?
You don't seem to be mentioning the fabric of the counter, so that's irrelevant?
Okay. The fabric of, what you are mentioning is the fact that, wait a second, we always are told that formica cannot be kosher. So my answer to it is the following, that if you plan to have all your food on the table directly, and you're going to be eating off the table, right, I know you don't, but if there is someone that does that, then perhaps we could enter into a discussion, can you kosher it or not? Due to the fact that this is only a koshering just in case you put something on it, we could follow the poskim that say that formica is fine. So therefore, a formica table, you have two options to do it in the ideal way. To either pour boiling water or to cover. Two options that you're fine. And you have to assess, because remember, the way tables were used 300 years ago are not the way they are used today. What do I assume that at home you cover the table. That's what people do.
We used 3 tablecloths to cover each table.
3?
That's good.
Per
We
table.
did, and we had 3 tablecloths.
Okay, the tablecloth company likes it, and they're happy, you're happy. Yes?
I just want to mention, correct me if I'm wrong, someone mentioned something about batel shishim. As far as I know, and this is what drives, like, what I'm not supposed to do, what you're telling me not to do to be,
Right.
if you're cooking and you're dealing with food, the batel shishim does not count for Pesach.
Okay,
And
your
that-
question is,
And I wanted to say, because someone was talking about, the batel shishim.
okay,
Pesach, no. That's why the liquids you try to do before Pesach.
correct. You have to remember that
But I
before
wanted to say that
Pesach,
because
there
someone
is
thinks it's
nullification. There is nullification before Pesach.
Yeah.
In other words, that's why I mentioned that on Pesach itself, you shouldn't, a person should not go to a second cup in Starbucks on Pesach itself. Reason being, because on Pesach itself, even the smallest amount could affect. So therefore, it's something that, now, that only applies on Pesach itself. On the eve of Pesach, meaning on Erev Pesach, you could go to Starbucks. Meaning, even though you don't eat chametz, but on Erev Pesach, things are nullified with shishim. So therefore, if you want to have a community get-together, to be up by the Seder, that at 6 p.m. Erev Pesach, after you helped and did everything, you could. I know it sounds odd, so don't do it on bathrooms. But on Pesach itself, you shouldn't. But you are right. There is no batel during Pesach, but there is batel before Pesach.
Rabbi, we'll be here afterwards.
Yes, I will be
But
here afterwards.
I have one more question.
One more question.
Yes.
Self-cleaning oven, that there's still some black residue that doesn't wipe out. It's, baked in.
I mentioned the fact that we are in a messianic era, that to kosher an oven, you gotta push a button. It's just an incredible thing, like our ancestors would be jealous. You have to remember that anything that's black is burnt. It's not food. You don't have to worry about it. So after it runs through 2.5, 3 hour, whatever cycle you have, it is 100% kosher l'Pesach. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Rabbi Milevsky. I want to thank George and Florence. A couple of quick announcements. I'm sorry. Stay tuned for next week, same time. No, it's not the same time. We'll be starting at 10 after 8. In the bulletin last week, on Shabbos, I said we have tables and chairs. The tables you see in front of you are not for sale. These are not the $10 tables. But if you're interested in some of the tables, go into the boardroom and you'll see some of the $10 tables. The $5 chairs, it's not these chairs. But if you need some chairs and you're prepared to clean them, kol kavod. And finally, we are still accepting shemus. We are not accepting any anonymous donations of shemus. Put your